All right, guys, we find it necessary to do another video on Crucifixion week. And we had another video previously where we looked at the week and we looked at it in light of the Enoch calendar. Now, in this video, we're not going to look at it in terms of the Enoch calendar. We're going to look at it in different terms, the terms that are used by the gospel writers. Okay, there's important information in the words, okay? So, for example, when we looked before in the previous video, we could see that we see the word Sabbath and we see the word preparation for the Sabbath. Many people think that that was the seventh day of the week. If that's the seventh day of the week, then that, presents a problem. As we saw in the previous video, presents a problem with the 3 days and 3 nights. He had to be, according to the sign of Jonah, 3 days, 3 nights. Okay, 3 days, 3 nights, the body was in the grave, and by Sunday, resurrection, the tomb is open. Clearly, okay, we understand that, but we went through the effort to define why it is that there's a weekly Sabbath, which is Saturday, and there's another Sabbath that's on the first day and 7 days of unleavened bread. Okay, now in this video, we're going to look at this critical day called the preparation day. We're going to look at the definition of the terms used by the gospel writers as they seem to give us an indication that they believe Christ was fulfilling the Passover on the night of the Last Supper. Okay? So that's what they believed. We're going to look at the way they define the terms. Why? Well, when you read the Passover in Exodus, it says the 14th day of Nisan. It says the 15th day of Nisan is the first day of unleavened bread. Okay, those terms do not exist in the New Testament. It does not say the day of Nisan. It does not say the day of the month. What it says the day of the feast. Okay, it says the preparation day. And it says the first day of the week. Okay, and the Sabbath. Okay, after the Sabbath. Okay. Now, these are very, very important. I encourage you to do your own study. These are just basic guides for you to make sense of what's going on. In the previous video, we established that clearly the 4th day of the week, which is a Wednesday, Christ was crucified. Okay, we eliminated the confusion of what happened, how you could have a Sabbath in the middle of the week. That's the first day of unleavened bread we saw in Leviticus. We can also clearly see Christ was resurrected per the Feast of First Fruits, was on the day after the weekly Sabbath. Okay, so we have different terms that are used in the Torah for Sabbath. We have different words. But in Greek, there's only really one word for Sabbath. It's Sabbathon. But in Hebrew, you have different words. You have Shabbat, Sabbathon. Okay, you have Noach. Okay, you have Shemitah, for example, for years. You have Jubilee. Okay, so you have many words to describe a Sabbath. Okay, so there's a weekly Sabbath, yes, and there's another Sabbath that exists during the feast days where you rest just like you rest on a weekly Sabbath. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Most of the Protestant pastors, when they go to seminary, they know this as something called the High Sabbath. Yes, that is a word. That's a term we're going to see in John. Okay, now let's talk about the way the New Testament writers define how the Passover events take place. Now, most of you, when you read Exodus, you see the Passover slain on the 14th, and the 15th is the first day of unleavened bread. Guys, this is just what it says. It says that they killed the Passover, and the first day of unleavened bread is the same day. That's what it says, okay? Now, once you understand that, if you want to separate that out, however you want to separate, I don't know how to separate that out. I don't know exactly. That's why I'm not defining it. You have to make that decision. I really don't know. Okay? That's why I don't like saying things on video that I don't know. So that's why I present the previous video. Now I present this one, and it's up to you to decide. It's a study guide. It's a way to make sense of the most critical thing in our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is what actually happened. We have to believe in the death, burial, resurrection. He was 3 days, 3 nights in the grave. Okay? That is the gospel. Now, what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to go into the new Passover. Okay, so we had the Passover in the Exodus. When Christ came, he brought in a new Passover. Okay? And that's what you can see in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, when you keep the feast of Passover, unleavened bread. Okay, so it's still to be kept. It's just defined now as communion, the Lord's table. Okay, then we enter the kingdom era. There's another Passover, but for us, we don't even understand the Passover of the last 2,000 years, guys. Okay, because of paganism, the pagan church came in with Babylon, came in with Easter, came in with all the pagan gods. Okay, made confusion. So we don't do the feast right. We don't understand. Okay, the most basic things of our faith. That's why we're doing teachings like this, so that you can study for yourself. Don't just sit and watch people on YouTube like me and say, okay, Leland, you do all the work and just tell me what to do. No, you have to study. Could you not pray 1 hour? Okay, so this is a study guide for you to understand these things. Okay, and hopefully that's what you're doing this week. Now, the other thing we have is the preparation day. Now, in the other video we had looked at when we looked at the Last Supper, we'll summarize that real quick. But now let's look at the way the gospel writers indicate that Christ kept the feast on a different day than the Jews. Okay, so once we get to Crucifixion Day, we begin to see that is the preparation day for the Jews. So that, for example, that was the day of preparation, and they said that the body must be off the crosses before the high Sabbath. Okay, for that weekly, not the weekly Sabbath, but that first day of unleavened bread. Okay, so now that gives us an indication that when he's crucified, all right, he had already kept the feast the previous night in the Last Supper. That's what the gospel writers seem to indicate, that he kept that feast properly, and that the Jews are in preparation on the day of his crucifixion. Okay, so that they have a different day. Okay, you just have to understand this in order to make sense of what's going on, of who's doing what, and hopefully this is helpful. Now, it's up to you to decide, okay, Psalm 14, 15, things like that, okay? Because the gospel writers don't make that clear. Now, remember that Pontius Pilate was surprised, okay, that Christ had died so soon, all right? So the Gospel of John, he says that at about the 6th hour, okay, he was at Gabbatha. We looked at in the previous video, okay? But it just presents some challenges. We addressed some in the previous video of one view. Now we're going to address another view in this one. And that is that we know that the 6th hour, okay, from the 6th hour to the 9th hour, there was darkness over the whole land. So it may have been more that he was crucified around that 6th hour, okay? If we do, then we have Passover moving ahead to the previous evening, going into that day as the day the Lord kept. But remember, the gospel writers, they make an indication that the killing of the Passover, the first day of unleavened bread, is the same day. Okay? I know that's a lot, but it will make sense to you if you study each of the Gospels, if you go through this. Now, there is a message inside this as well, okay? But it's just the timing of this that we're addressing in these videos to make sense of it, to make sure that we believe in the gospel. We believe the fact that the body was in the grave 3 days and 3 nights, okay? Now, we do have notes, so let's get into our notes. Okay, here's our notes, and on each page of the notes, you will have this section here, which will give us an overview of the days of the week in the crucifixion week. Now, what we have here when we say Passover, Holy Convocation, unleavened bread, now these here, we're predominantly looking at in the previous video. These relate to the Enoch calendar. Okay, so now in our video today, we're not saying specifically that Passover and the Holy Convocation is here because, remember, they're defined as the same day. We even said this in the previous video, but a lot of you guys didn't really understand that, so we're going over this again. So in the previous video, what we had talked about is clearly these are the days of the week. The 3rd day of the week, 4th day of the week, 5th day of the week, 6th day of the week, 7th day of the week is the Sabbath. And first fruits is the first day of the week. Okay, you can see here the first day of the week, first fruits, Resurrection Sunday. Okay? So, as we look at the Gregorian dates, we have the Crucifixion. The 4th day of the week is a Wednesday. 5th day of the week is a Thursday. 6th day of the week is a Friday. Okay? Now, also in Greek, that's called Paraskevi, means preparation. Okay? Preparation for the Sabbath. Okay? But there's also a preparation for Passover. There's a day before of it called Paraskevi. Also in English, it's translated in the King James as preparation day. Okay? Day prior to the Sabbath or feast day. So, this allows you to see that as we're trying to make it clear, the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, simply put, he had to bend his body in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. He said, I'll give you no sign but the prophet Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights. Okay? So, we know clearly, as we mentioned before, we have first fruits, the first day of the week, and the tomb was empty. Okay? So, however you want to put it, you have to have 3 days, 3 nights. So, you can have one full day, day and night like this. Okay? Or you can have evening, morning, 1, 2, 3. Okay, however you want to put it, you have to have 3 days full nights. So that places clearly from Sunday, going back 3 days, you have to have the crucifixion on a Wednesday, the 4th day of the week. Okay? We established that clearly in the video. This here is a guide for you to use as you read it to understand that. Okay? So, as we mentioned in the previous video, our date of the crucifixion hasn't changed. What we're talking about now is some other terms, okay? But we mentioned it before, and we can see it here as we look at our notes in the previous video. Let's see, where is it? That's part 2. Here's part 1. Okay, that the first day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. Let's get that so the sun so you can see it. We said this in the previous video. Mark chapter 14 verse 1. The first day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. Now, in our thinking, we would say, okay, well, they killed the Passover on the 14th. The first day of unleavened bread is the 15th. I'm just saying this is what the Bible says. Do with that as you will. Okay? So then we looked at the possibility of with the Enoch calendar, the Passover, and the Last Supper being here. Now we're going to talk about is the Last Supper being here. Okay, so that the events of the Last Supper leading into crucifixion, okay, would mean that he was in the evening on the Last Supper, and then all the events take place before sunset the next day. Okay, so before we had a nice guy where we show you, okay, here's Gethsemane, here's the rooster crow, here's Caiaphas, here's Pontius Pilate, back to Herod, back to Pontius Pilate, okay? And we had looked at, okay, how is it that the 6th hour he was at Gabbatha, and the 3rd hour he's at Golgotha, okay? So the purpose of the last video was to explain the week. There's a day of rest during the week, during the first day of unleavened bread, okay? So we saw that clearly. In the Greek, it's called Paraskevi. It's the day before the Sabbath. Okay? Now, it's defined as a holy convocation in Leviticus. Now, we're going to discuss that again in this video, so we're not going to spend so much time there, but we just want to recap that these notes have 3 pages. Okay? So, this is page number 1. Okay? This is page number 2. And now, in this video, we have page number 3, and we're going to look at this in the Gospel's definition of terms, okay? What does the Gospel say? The Gospel does not say Nisan 14 and 15. It doesn't say that, okay? So, you have to, that's what I'm saying, you have to come to terms with that on your own, because it says Passover, when you kill the Passover, and unleavened bread is the same day. That's just what they say. It's the same day. That's just what the book says. Okay? And again, Mark 14:12, the first day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. So they counted the first day of unleavened bread and the Passover as the same day. I know I've said that like 5 times, but maybe the 5th time you understand it. Okay, so the first day when you kill the Passover. This is stated clearly that we saw in Mark, and it's also in Luke, where then came the day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. So that's clearly what the gospel writers are saying. Now, what they're saying is they're recognizing that Christ is doing this on a different day than the Jews. So let's talk about that. Now, when we look at our chart here, and let's say, now in this example, we got Last Supper being here. So what they're saying is they're saying that Christ is keeping the first day of unleavened bread and the Passover on the same day, on a different day as the Jews. Okay, they're saying that he is keeping a true Passover, okay, in the Last Supper. So if we have that Last Supper here, that's the evening of Tuesday, okay? If that's there, okay, that's what they're saying. Now, what happens is then the next day, when the sun is up, when the Crucifixion day, okay, he calls that the preparation day of the Jews, which we can clearly see. So if that's the preparation days, that means that the Jews are keeping the first day of Passover and unleavened bread on a different day. Okay? This is another thing. We're just explaining what the book says, so to eliminate some confusion. But it appears that Mark and Luke say Christ kept the Passover on the Last Supper, which is the right day. Okay? So, what you guys we're doing is we're doing all this to try to explain that in the future all this is going to change. But unfortunately, we don't even understand something that happened 2,000 years ago when it's the most core, simple thing of our faith. So what happened, guys, is that when Christ did this, he established a new Passover, a new rule. It's called communion, the Lord's table. Okay? So this is a new piece of instruction for the Passover, which you see in 1 Corinthians 11, and it's the Last Supper, which you also see in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 6 and 7. Some of you say, well, what do I do in unleavened bread? Well, it's in 1 Corinthians 5. It says to keep the Passover. Yes, the New Testament says to keep the Passover. It never says Easter. Only Easter word appears there as King James, where they put the word Easter in place of Passover in the book of Acts. It never says keep Easter. It says keep the Passover without leaven. Okay, and it describes that. So what do you want to do? You want to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. You want to be in 1 Corinthians 11. That is the commandment of the New Testament commandment of Passover. So what we're trying to do, guys, is we're trying to not just, explain what happened 2,000 years ago. We're trying to go forward because it's going to change again. So that's going to be in the next video, but we have to go over this over and over to try and make sense of what's going on. Because now we can see he keeps that. That's the 4th day of the week. That's it's the preparation day. So the 4th day of the week in the Greek means periskivi. It's the day before the Sabbath. Okay, so now let's talk about this preparation day. It's very important. So the day before the Sabbath is a preparation day, periskivi, which you clearly see in Mark 15:42. Now we also define that Sabbath day as the Holy Convocation, which in Leviticus 23, 6 and 7 is the first day of unleavened bread. It's a rest day. So preparation is the day before the rest day. It's the day to get ready. Okay? So we have the rest day, we have the periskivi. Now, once we look at this word and you look in context, it becomes clear that this word is being used on Crucifixion Day. Okay? Crucifixion Day is preparation. We see that in Luke 23:54. That day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. So, as we mentioned before, all right, they had already recognized that Christ had kept the feast, okay, at the Last Supper. But now we get to Crucifixion Day, all right, what their gospel writers are saying, it's the Jews are keeping the preparation, Okay? So it's possible that, yes, there was a separation here. I'm just saying, you have to make that own decision on your own for that. Okay? I'm just saying the way the gospel writers make it clear that there's a distinction, okay, between the day that Christ kept and the day the Jews kept. All right? So Crucifixion Day is the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. They returned, and the women, they were from Galilee. They prepared the spices and ointments, and then it says they rested according to the commandment. Well, what's the commandment? We have an arrow pointing right to it. It's in Leviticus 23. All right, we talked about that in the previous video. Hopefully that's obvious and clear. Now, let's talk about John, because John uses the word preparation 3 times in context. So, in John 19:14, it was the preparation of the Passover. Okay, so same preparation, paraskivi, of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. Okay, so again, this is saying about the 6th hour. And Pilate said, "Behold your king." So this is give us an indication that the 6th hour is on the preparation. Okay, and verse 31 says, and during the preparation, the day of preparation, what they would do is the bodies shouldn't remain on the cross on the Sabbath. So the bodies would have to come off the cross before sundown. And then John says, this is the high day. So some people might call this the high Sabbath. Okay, it's the high Sabbath. In Greek, megas, high. Okay, and then day. So it's the high day. It's the high Sabbath. It's during the week. It's not a Friday evening. It is during the week. Okay, and it's a Wednesday because it has to be the 4th day of the week. So that's the 4th here is a Wednesday. So they made a new tomb that no man had laid for Jesus on the preparation. Okay, so I know a lot of you guys ask me, it appears the preparation is the Crucifixion Day. Yes, okay. That's why we're giving you this other video, giving this other view. All right, so now we can clearly see the 4th day, Christ, the gospel writers believe that Christ fulfilled that on the new Passover, the Lord's table, so that they believed he kept that. But the Jews were keeping something called a preparation day, and that was the next day. So the next day, the Thursday, was the Sabbath day, the weekly high Sabbath, okay? I hope that's clear. Then we know clearly at the end, and the first day of the week, and the end of the Sabbath, or the 7th day of the week, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week. All right, that's clear from Matthew 28, Luke 24, that the first day of the week, he's out of the tomb. And we know this is the fulfillment of first fruits. Okay? So when the Sabbath was passed, they brought spices to anoint him very early in the morning, the first of the week. Okay, first of the week. So again, this is the first day of the week. It's a Sunday. Now Christ is risen from the dead, and he has become the first fruits of them that slept. Okay, so he has to be resurrected on first fruits, according to 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20. And we learned the first fruits is the day after the Sabbath. Okay, let's conclude it. What have we learned? We have focused on the preparation day, showing us that the preparation day is in fact Crucifixion Day. Okay? We've learned that Christ would have kept the feast on a different day than what the Jews were doing, okay? And that if that, was here, okay, then the gospel writers make it clear that he is keeping the feast on the proper day, okay? And the confusion can come, as we've seen, where the definition of terms of what is being said, right, is that the Passover and the first day of unleavened bread is the same day, according to the gospel writers, okay? So, the first day of unleavened bread when they killed the Passover. Then, that's what they believe Christ did on the Last Supper meal. Okay, so the Last Supper meal replaces the sacrifice of Passover, and then we enter the New Testament. Now, what we're going to get into next is that this communion in the Lord's table, it also ends, because then we enter a new era, the kingdom era of the millennium, and there are different instructions for the Passover. Okay, so but we have to spend 2 videos talking about the week of crucifixion just to understand what happened 2,000 years ago. Okay, so hopefully that is clear. Let me know if there's any questions. Please get the notes. This will be page 3. And we'll have another video where we talk about the Passover in the future. All right, so we're trying to look at this and trying to understand it and understand the calendar so as to understand the fulfillment of this in the future. So guys, this is part of a playlist on the feasts and the Sabbath. Okay, the feasts and the Sabbath, we discuss the feast, we discuss all these things. You really should be doing this every year. You should keep the Passover. You should study. You should try to understand what's happening in the Gospels. What is the fulfillment? We're going to talk about the fulfillment in the time we're in now in another video, but we have to explain all this first. So thanks for watching. Fear God. Give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment has come. Worship Him that made the heavens, the earth, the seas, and the fountains of waters. Amen.